Football has its roots in England in the 19th century. The game emerged as an evolution of other ball games, such as street football and Italian calcio. The first official football rule was written in 1863 by the Football Association, FA, in England, and since then football has become one of the most popular sports in the world. Football's popularity quickly followed to other European countries, and later to other parts of the world, including South America, Africa and Asia. Today, football is played by millions of people around the world and is one of the main forms of entertainment and passion for many people. Football was introduced in Brazil at the end of the 19th century, brought by European immigrants, mainly English. The first official football game in the country was held in 1895, between two teams of English immigrants. From then on, football began to gain popularity and develop rapidly in Brazil. Football in Brazil has evolved with the incorporation of local and regional elements, resulting in a unique style recognized worldwide for its flourishing and elegance. Brazil is now one of the most successful nations in football history, having won the FIFA Football World Cup 5 times and produced some of the greatest players of all time, such as Pelé, Ronaldo, Romario and Ronaldinho. Football is an integral part of Brazilian culture and is widely regarded as the country's national sport. The first official soccer game in Brazil was held on April 14, 1895, between two teams of English immigrants in the city of Rio de Janeiro. The game ended with a 2-0 victory for Fluminense Football Club over Rio Football Club. Since then, football has grown in popularity in Brazil and has become an integral part of Brazilian culture and society. The country is now recognized as one of the greatest and most talented football centers in the world, and the FIFA Football World Cup is one of the most prestigious and watched sporting events on the planet. The first football teams in Brazil were founded by European immigrants, mainly English, in the city of Rio de Janeiro at the end of the 19th century. Some of the first teams include Fluminense Football Club, founded in 1901, Flamengo Football Club, founded in 1895, and Botafogo de Futebol e Regatas, founded in 1904. These teams were founded as social clubs for the European immigrant community in Rio de Janeiro, and quickly became an integral part of Brazilian culture and society. They helped to lay the foundations of football in Brazil and define the game as the country's national sport. Since then, the number of football teams in Brazil has grown exponentially, and today there are hundreds of teams across the country, from amateur teams to professional teams competing in the first division of the Brazilian Championship.